friends, welcome back to my channel. If it's not your first time here, thank you so much for coming back, and if it is your first time, thank you for clicking on this video. So I recently published a video, in fact it was last week's video, where I talked about 6 things that I could do in the Netherlands that I cannot do in the US, and in today's video I'll be doing the exact opposite and talking about 6 things that I can do in the US but not here in the Netherlands. So you guys know how we do it here. Go ahead and get comfortable, get yourself your favorite snack, and we'll get right into it. So at first glance, if you're here in the Netherlands on vacation, then you might think that the two countries don't have that many differences. However, if you spend some real time here in the Netherlands, you will see that the differences add up and that the Dutch and American cultures are not the same. So some of these differences are insignificant, so small little things, and others are pretty serious. So let's get right into it. And before we get started, if you like this type of content, then please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already and hit that like button. And on to number 1. You can run to the grocery store or a convenience store like 7-Eleven well after dinner time and throughout the day on Sunday, from morning to night. So in the US, a 10 p.m. shopping trip in the American suburbs is not out of the question if that's the only time you can shop. You know, maybe you work nights, maybe you have your kids all day, and the nighttime is the only time that you can have peace and run your errands. Even places like Target are open until midnight in many areas, and in the US, convenience is king. But that's certainly not the case here in the Netherlands. So here, you'd be hard-pressed to find a grocery store that's open at 10 p.m., especially outside of the larger cities. And in many cases, their open hours on Sunday are very limited. So business hours are definitely different here in the Netherlands and can take some planning and adjustment period if you're used to shopping at odd hours. And on to number 2 is that you can get your license without knowing how to drive a stick shift. So while some driving schools do offer lessons in an automatic transmission, it's not the default and it would be a special request. And they note the fact on your actual license if you pass the driving test in the Netherlands in an automatic car. So new drivers here in the Netherlands by default are expected to learn how to drive a car with a manual transmission. And this is how you learn to drive cars at driving schools here in the Netherlands. So stick shifts are the norm. In the US, it's the complete opposite because automatic transmissions are the norm and it's what you see in the vast majority of cars on the road. So most new drivers in the US take their driving test on an automatic car, and the drivers here in the Netherlands mostly take it on a stick shift. All right, and on to number 3 is that it's relatively common to change careers. So you can change your career in the US by going back to school later in life, or by just proving your worth and working hard in a new industry. It's quite common. But in the Netherlands, career trajectory seems to be more rigid. It's not that you can't change your career, because I'm sure it happens. However, I do feel like it's more accepted, more doable, and more encouraged to pursue a new career path in the US. Now, keep in mind that Dutch students pick their career path when they're about 16 or 17 years old and stick with it. It also seems like it's difficult to move laterally within your field here in the Netherlands if you don't have the experience or exact degree, even if you're able to do the job perfectly well. I know people in the US who started from scratch, including my own sister, who transitioned into a whole new career in her 30s, and I'm really proud of her for doing that. And so as I was making this video, I was doing some research on why it's difficult to change careers here in the Netherlands, and I came across 2 reasons that were very compelling to me. The first one is that Netherlands hiring and recruitment costs prevent employers from taking on the risk that comes with hiring new employees. It's expensive to hire a new employee here in the Netherlands, and I found out that it's quite difficult to let them go. The second is that the Dutch mentality is achievement-based, so it's more geared towards seeking diplomas, so it's just 2 things to think about. And number 4 is that in the US, you can be sentenced to death in some states for a crime, while in the Netherlands, the death penalty is 100% illegal. illegal. So it was interesting as I was making this video to find out that the last time someone was sentenced to death here in the Netherlands was in 1952. And then several years later in 1983, there was an Article 114 on the Constitution, so the Grondwet, that completely outlawed the death penalty. In the US, it's a little different. I believe we have capital punishment in 27 states. And according to the Death Penalty Information Center, 17 people were executed in 2020 and 11 in 2021. And number 5, and this is one that I've spoken about in one of my previous videos that I link somewhere on this screen, is that you can legally be a surrogate mother or seek one out. So in the Netherlands, commercial surrogacy is actually illegal, and that goes both ways. So if you're seeking out a surrogacy arrangement and want someone to carry your child for you, or if you're looking to carry someone else's child for them. So in America, you can go to a surrogacy agency and procure this service. I believe it's unregulated on the federal level, but each state has its own legislation. So it's legal to commercially promote it in the US, and it's something that you can do. And finally, number 6 is that you can acquire a gun relatively easy. And in some states in the US, you can carry it on your person. Open carry is legal in many states, including Alabama, Kentucky, Louisiana, just to name a few. And as you know, the right to keep and bear arms in the US is protected by the Second Amendment, and that's all I have to say about that. And that wraps up my video for today, guys. Let me know in the comments section if there's other things you've observed that you can do in the US, but not here in the Netherlands. And if you haven't watched my previous video, which is a complete opposite of this one, where I talk about the things that you can do in the Netherlands, but not in the US, I've linked it down below in the description box. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, as it really helps me to grow this channel. And until next time, Dewey.